Hello everyone. Welcome back to our class on disaster management, and in today's session we'll be discussing about soil desertification, and this is a syllabus. And soil desertification, it is a process of land degradation in arid, semi-arid and subhumid areas, typically losing water bodies, vegetations, wildlife due to various factors including climate variations and human activity. And this is a standard definition given by United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And you need to pay attention to each and every word in this definition. It's basically the land degradation or quality of reduction in the quality of soil, and in some specific climatic areas or regions like arid or semi-arid or subhumid areas. And the typical characteristics are losing water bodies, vegetations and wildlife. Means water bodies in the sense either some ponds or rivers, they start disappearing from the earth's surface. That's one prominent characteristic. And like that, the flora and fauna, the vegetations and wildlife, they start getting wiped off from the earth's surface due to various reasons, including the climatic variations and human activity. Now, this United Nations this convention was formed with an idea of supporting, to combat this desertification in certain countries which experience serious drought and desertification, particularly in Africa. And this was formed in mid 90s in Paris, and then I think almost all countries are part of this convention. And in 2006, they to publicize this convention, they declared it as a 2006 as an International Year of Deserts and Desertification. Now, coming back to our discussions, it is not the physical expansion of existing desert, and this is the most important statement. We are not talking about the expansion of any existing deserts, like expansion of Rajasthan desert is there, right? Then Kalahari deserts, then in Australia we have. So deserts are already there, so we are not talking about the expansion of it, but it is a different process. And deserts appear automatically over the natural course of planet's life cycle. Now, in one of the studies by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, it revealed that a new analysis of African sand, which revealed the Sahara desert, which swung between the green and desert conditions every 20,000 years, in sync with the changes in Earth's tilt. So this has got nothing to do with human activity. It is completely the natural phenomena. It says, it over years, over some few thousands of years, a desert changes to a green area and then again back to desert. So this is something which happens very naturally. And now we are in a slide. You can see this diagram, which I think you're familiar. You might have learned in some primary level classes. At least in 10th standard, I think we learned this. The main biomes in the world, like ice sheets on the polar deserts, and then tundra, then taiga, then tropical rainforest, steppe, savanna, then desert, Mediterranean vegetations and all. And biome means basically it is a large naturally occurring community of flora and fauna occupying a major habitat. Example, the forest or tundra, some forest in tundra. Otherwise, deserts are already there, right? Now, coming to Indian context. Now, what you see here on right side is Indian climate map, which it shows some arid area near Rajasthan and Gujarat, and then semi-arid area adjoining that, and then in some areas like tropical climate, you can see that. in our Kerala, which comes under this tropical wet climate, and adjacent to that in Tamil Nadu, some portion is in the semi-arid area. Okay, and in the Himalayan area and Arunachal Pradesh, you can see the highland climate. This is a broadest classification of climate. And there is another graph juxtaposed. Here you can see this a hot desert area and cold desert area. Fine, hot and cold desert area. In the Rajasthan arid climate has this hot deserts, and cold desert is in the highland, Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and all. Now, the soil desertification, which results in persistent degradation of dry land and fragile ecosystem. Land that was originally of another type of biome, which turns into a desert biome. That is a problem all about the change in the type of biomes. And many countries, they have large pockets of land that are going through a process that is known as desertification. Now, it may not occur, across a nation or across a region. It may be occurring in some small pockets, and then later on that may get interconnected, and then obviously that will have the whole climate type whole biome type will change. And the dry land occupy about 40% of Earth's land area, and which is home to more than 2 billion people, almost 200 crore people, and at least 90% of the inhabitants of dry land, they live in developing nations, where they also suffer from poor economic and social condition. This is another important challenge, biggest challenge. In the sense, in one word, this is actually showing the vulnerability. Right? The people are living in some developing nations where they do not have much. They don't have a very strong economic and social backgrounds to support. So when we have this kind of problems in such places, and they're more vulnerable, and they'll be affected much more than the same problem affecting developed countries. And there is another photograph which is taken from Wikipedia, which is a satellite image taken in 2001 of the Lake Chad in Africa, and the actual lake is in blue color, and the lake lost almost 90% of the surface area between 1987 and 2005. Some period you can see there is a gradual decrease in the surface area of the water body, and I just put some few photographs to help you, to understand the threats and the real situation. And this is about a photograph, some newspaper report, it seems, about a desertification in Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh. You can read that. And again, see, this is from some other country, from Latin America, how soil degradation is a threat for them. There is a reduction in nutritious value for this soil, and as a result there is the vegetation and biodiversity is seriously affected. And now this is another photograph from Northern America. And now desertification vulnerability, this image, you can see that those spots in red color are highly vulnerable, especially in the Middle East area, like some countries like Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and that region is highly affected by this desertification. And in some significant part of Australia is affected, and some portion in northern part of Africa, and then in US also there are some regions, right, some spots like that. And in India you can see that especially that peninsular area near to us, our place, is also affected. It's also more vulnerable, I should say. And this was prepared by US Department of Agriculture, and this map was prepared by them. And now we need to know the causes and effects of desertification. Causes include overgrazing, then unsustainable agricultural technique, deforestation, sustainable water management. Uh, you can read like that, and I will try to connect this cause and effect. We can also look at this like this. See, overgrazing, the point one that you can map to the point one in the effect, like vegetation is damaged and destroyed. Okay, and then unsustainable agricultural technique that lead to soil becoming infertile, and then deforestation, then soil erosion gets worse, and then unsustainable water management. This increases vulnerability to natural disasters. Then overpopulation and overexploitation of natural resources. That again you can map to multiple points. I was just trying to find some relationship, some simple relationship, but one thing will be one cause, maybe it can be mapped to multiple effects, and in vice versa. And then urbanization and development, connected to rise of famine, poverty, and etc. Climate change, which is will have an effect of collapse of civilization, and I think in history we will be able to find various examples of the effect of this climate change on the civilization, and the extinct of species and all. Now, overgrazing means it is not about stopping any animals grazing. It's all about too many animals that are grazing at a smaller specific region. That is actually the problem, because that makes it difficult for the plant to grow back. That is the problem. So if you go for some forest encroachment, or if you reduce the green area, what will happen is the available grazing land area will be reduced, and that will be focused, and then all the animals are forced to do this grazing from a small region, and then again that will be indirectly that will be bringing that threat. Now, unsustainable agricultural techniques, plenty of unsustainable unethical agricultural practices can be listed here, but I put only very few. Some farmers, they essentially try to take everything out of the land, and then they will leave that land less fertile, and then they will be looking for another better land or plot. So they'll do all the activities, and that will disturb the nature of the land. And similarly, then monocropping or multiculture, which increases the susceptibility of diseases, then pest infestation, then drought and nutritious depletions, etc. So then that is, monoculture and monocropping are not considered as a sustainable solution for food production. Now there is some what is preferred is a crop rotation. On the right hand side, you can see an image which shows how one simple explanation of crop rotation, like you can have once in one season you can have this potato and tomato farming, and then later legumes, then peas, bread beans, French beans, etc. And then again coming to, sorry, I am not able to read it properly. Some other agricultural product. This we can keep rotating over years, and also we can have the farming, like in the same season we can have two or multiple crops at the same time. So there are various scientific and indigenous methods and practices available, and that's a separate topic again. Definitely urge everybody to spend some time in reading this crop and agricultural best practices in agriculture. Okay, and then excessive and irrational usage of pesticides, then fungicides and herbicides is an attempt to sterile the field. excuse me, excessive use of pesticide, because people look at this as an aggressive um, agricultural practice, but in fact, we are it's all in simple word, it is a greed. Uh, we are bringing we are creating unnecessary stress to the soil, and thereby damaging it. And also, implementation or adoption of some some type of agricultural equipment is also one of the reason. Because people, they look for some quick and easy solution, and that also will have a counterintuitive effect. And then causes due to deforestation means that we don't need much emphasis to this. People may be cutting trees to make their houses or other important things, but are we really planting planting anything back? That is a question. We are doing only one side. We are um, cutting it, but we don't plant. So that is a problem. So, and that actually creates the imbalance. But you might have heard other two terms like afforestation or reforestation or afforestation, which means planting trees back, and that is also there. And then other causes are like unsustainable water management. And I think, as somebody said, if there is a third world war, and that will be for that will be in the name of water. And you can see this map which shows the distribution of renewable water resources. You can see that where our Asian countries are in, and similarly the African countries are seriously affected. And I think this is okay. Yeah. And now there are some conflicts and some disputes in the name of rivers and water bodies across the globe. That is another issue. Then this actually shows how critical this is. And now this is one area which needs which solicits our attention very much. And then over population and over exploitation of natural resources, I think not required to explain much. And because overpopulation will lead to food shortage, then increase in malignancy, and then higher prices for everything, and then higher level of pollutions, etc., etc. Everything is connected. And then urbanization is another cause. All that red spots are showing the inhabitants or cities with at least 10 lakh populations, and that will only grow in numbers. And then climate change is something, again, that is a separate topic altogether. And on what you see on right side is a very commonly seen image, how it impacts some everything, all species in the planet. And it's a need of the hour now. And then now, having seen the various causes and its effect, then we need to look at the various solutions for this. And the policy, there should be first and foremost is to set up some policy changes, okay, to have some policy related to how people can do farming. Okay, this is very important. And then policy change to other types of land use, and then education, and then technological advances, and then putting together the rehabilitation efforts. If a piece of land, if some nation is affected, then how can we provide some support to rehabilitate and bring it back to the normal condition. And sustainable practices, and we need to identify what are the practices, best practices, and what are the practices which we need to stop or avoid. And now the prevention action includes integrating land. These are the specific preventive actions: integrating land and water management to protect soil from erosion, salination, and other forms of degradation, and then protecting the vegetative cover, which can be a major instrument for soil conservation against wind and water erosion, and then integrating the use of land for grazing and farming where conditions are favorable, allowing for a more efficient cycling of nutrients within the agricultural system, and then applying a combination of traditional practices with locally acceptable and locally adapted land use technologies. This is very, very important. I think you have to pay attention to each and every point, and that's that's and we have to identify what we can specifically do, and giving local communities the capacity to prevent desertification and to manage dry land resources effectively, and turning to alternative livelihood that do not depend on traditional land use, such as dry land aquaculture, then greenhouse agriculture, and tourism related activities, is less demanding on local land and natural resources, and yet providing sustainable income and creating economic opportunity in dry land urban centers and in areas outside the dry land. Some specific examples of um, this includes to restore and rehabilitate ecosystem include establishing seed banks, okay, and then reintroducing selected species, and then countering erosion through terracing and other measures, enriching the soil with the nutrients, and planting trees. Now, this topic is really vast and grave, and this cannot be completely, mastered in a single class, or even in a couple of sessions, because it is so vast, and I'm because of this time limitation that I'm forced to reduce everything into such a small class, and still it is not complete and comprehensive. Yet this is to get some fundamental knowledge and perspective towards the subject. But you might have seen your area of focus must be on what measures can be adopted as an engineer to stop this phenomenon. And there is a lot which an engineer can do, and if well-being is our motto, then we must be acquiring and applying the knowledge which we have gained, knowledge and skill that we have gained, to fight this phenomenon, and then suggest you to gain more knowledge in this area as much as possible, so that you can influence others, and so that this will influence us at a deeper level, at a cultural level. That is very important. And also, as much as possible, you try to disseminate this information or knowledge to people around, and that will help them to adopt better practices, and also try to look into some advanced some advanced tools as well as some indigenous tools. You might have seen in one of the slides, we had wonderful indigenous village practices and all, and if you stick to that, and definitely that will be more holistic, and that will be more sustainable in nature. Then if you go for some irrational practices of some technology, then that will have a counter intuitive effect. So therefore there should be balance between these two, and we should be prudent in selecting the technology and methods. And thank you all.